Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, this week we're going to be discussing something rather somber and serious. Of course, such are the times, and I think all our past discussions have been on the same topic. But it's really the tag of the outsider. We saw Sushant Singh Rajput's suicide. We saw all the conversation around it. How, was he treated badly by the industry? Was he not allowed to come in because there was a clique that actually prevented him from making it big? And also, is this the clique of the inner circle? Is it something that is only limited to Bollywood? We've seen it in politics. We've seen it in industry, in legal circles, even in the medical fraternity. So, what is it like to be an outsider, and how does one break into the circle of the insiders? Is something we're going to be discussing on Roundtable today. Joining me is Dilip Cherian. He's an image guru and a communications consultant. Usually, people go to him when they want to make the image. So, Dilip, today we're going to try and find out how do we not break our image. That's what we're going to be discussing today. Radhika Ramaseshan, she's a columnist and also a consulting editor with the Business Standard. Kaveri Bamzai, she's an author. She wrote No Regrets, columnist, and an event curator. And we'll also be joining by Rashid Kidwai will also be joining us soon. He is a fellow with the ORF, and he's written the book Neta Abhineta on Bollywood star power in politics. So, Kaveri, how do we, this taking off from Sushant Singh's case, this whole there is a inner clique that doesn't really let you come in, whether it is Bollywood, whether it is politics. There are groups that prevail. How do you differentiate between a group or a darbar or a coterie?
Priya, we've always had camps and cliques in any profession. In Bollywood, because it's not exactly an industry, although it likes to call itself that, what it has instead of studios are camps and cliques, okay? But it's very clearly defined. You have the Karan Johar lot, which is the loose alignment of Karan Johar, Ekta Kapoor, YRF. You have the Bhai factory, as I call it, which is all the so-called victims and martyrs who go to Salman Khan for jobs, and all the Aishwarya Rai Bachchan lookalikes. And then you have another loose alignment which keeps changing. Sometimes it's Ram Gopal Verma. Right now it's Anurag Kashyap, where all the outsiders, so to speak, can go for their first break.
Yeah.
So, Hollywood has four major studios. Bollywood has three major camps, but they are essentially production houses. And you've had tremendous amount of mobility. If you look at not just from the beginning, from whether it was Devanand or Dilip Kumar, they've all been outsiders. But even if you look at recent history, you look at people like Nawazuddin, who got in through Anurag Kashyap movies, or you look at people like Jaideep Alawat. I mean, these are not people who were even remotely connected to Mumbai cinema. You look at the enormous entry of outsiders in terms of direction. You've had completely new voices, completely new directors who've come in from the Hindi heartland and who joined YRF, that's Yash Raj Films, and changed the way cinema has been made. So you hear a lot more different dialects, different accents, different small towns being represented. So I think this whole idea that Kangana Ranaut herself, who speaks most about nepotism, is a child of the mobility of Hindi cinema. I mean, she comes from Himachal Pradesh and makes it big through another, factory which keeps sort of changing and which keeps on the margins of the industry. That's the Mahesh Bhatt factory. So you have a lot of these people, and anyone who's as bright as Sushant Singh Rajput knows that. And not to say that he's not worked with some of the finest directors in the industry, whether it's Rajkumar Hirani or whether it's Nitesh Tiwari who made Dangal, or whether it's Abhishek Chaubey who made Utta Punjab and then he made Son Cheria with him. He's worked with the best in the industry. So this is a misnomer that, outsiders can't get in. Bollywood only understands commercial success. Like, I think even more than any other industry. It looks at how your film does every Friday. And in the case of streaming, it looks at how much buzz you can collect and how many algorithms you fit. And if you do that successfully, you're adopted, co-opted, immediately. Now, what happens is that from suddenly being the hot thing and the next best thing, you can suddenly become overnight invisible. Now, that is where someone who's smart, someone who's able to negotiate failure, has to know how to negotiate that. Not everyone, even if they're terribly bright, as Sushant was, are able to negotiate failure. Look at Amitabh Bachchan. He came in from nowhere. His first 19 films flopped. Okay, he had the so-called backing of Indira Gandhi or the Gandhis, but it doesn't get you squat in the industry. If your films don't do well, nobody really cares. So I think this insider-outsider narrative is quite bogus. I think people, if they're successful, if their films do well, are immediately adopted. The moment you start showing some signs of, your films failing and too much attitude, you will be dismissed. And there you will be dismissed suddenly. That is where you have to show strength of character. You have to build alliances. In the case of Kangana Ranaut, even if you alienate someone as powerful as Karan Johar, you have to make sure that you have your own ecosystem so that you can produce your own movies. Whether they're successful or not, she remains a voice. No one can ignore her.
Okay, a lot of things, Dilip, she said, best is, you need to negotiate failure. But is it as simple as that? Everybody loves the success, or is it just depending on you, or there are actually people who don't allow you to become a success? Is the insider myth just a bogey, as Kaveri is saying?
I think Kaveri's point, of course, of insider-outsider is valid. But I think that one needs to understand this from a slightly larger framework. At the end, it is, as she said, whether the algorithm shows that you are a cash machine. If you're not a cash machine, you are irrelevant. Okay, that's the first fundamental basis. That's true of stock markets. That's true of startups, which are hot one day and absolutely useless the next day. So it's your ability to prove that you have a formula that delivers what customer wants. If she is buying you, then you're successful. If she's not, then you need to rework your product, rework your alliances, shift cams, do whatever is necessary. And I think this ability to negotiate failure is something that is missing in a lot of people. Not being able to understand that there is a cycle. We talked of Amitabh Bachchan. He went through a phase when ABCL, went into liquidation.
Yeah.
So the point is that you are talking of the cyclicity of this whole business, and every business, I think, also has one more factor, and that vector is power.
Yeah.
So besides commercial success, there is also just as money is hard to come by, power is hard to come by. So the cliques form to coagulate bits and pieces of power to increase their power quotient in any industry. And this happens, we all remember the enormous clout that something called the Bombay Club had in business.
Correct, huh?
So they virtually dictated industrial policy for many years because they coagulated together. So it's the same thing, whether it's trade unionism, whether you call it a cartel, you can call it a club, you can call it whatever you want. But commercial success and the nature of power will always create these things. If you don't like it, you got to find your way out of that industry. That's the only option.
Radhika, we've talked about Bollywood. Dilip touched a bit on industry, on business, but politics also, we haven't touched on that. And we've seen, whether you want to call it Darbar, coteries, whatever the word is, there are groups and factions also, and there are rules of engagement to be part of one. For instance, the Gandhis, if they allow you in the inner circle, you are not allowed to talk about it. We've known about Jaitley's Darbar, which was a little more inclusive in terms of, more than the Gandhis. But again, there were also rules of engagement, and the outsiders knew they were outsiders because insiders did have certain, shared jokes, shared names, shared this thing. So there is that clique we see in politics also. Radhika?
Yeah, well, one can write a long form piece or even a book on Jaitley's Darbar, having sort of watched it from slightly from outside. I was not in the inner circle. So he had, Jaitley had these circumferences. There was the absolute inner circle, then there was one outside, then there was one, and then there was one on the periphery. And those on the periphery were privy to gossip about cricket or a bit of Bollywood, but never about politics or the BJP politics or what was really happening inside the BJP. Now, I just want to expand this whole outsider issue a little more than going beyond coteries and cabals. You have lateral entrance in a party like the BJP, which is bound firstly by the RSS and secondly by its own inner dynamics. Okay, now taking in lateral entrance / outsiders coincided with the BJP's rapid expansion in the 90s. And if you see, they really attracted a very a motley bunch of talent, because as Advaniji himself used to tell us very often, where is the talent? He used to despair that there is really no talent. So if we come to power, what are we going to do? So you had people like Ranga Kumaramangalam, even Yashwant Sinha. He was an outsider. He came in from Mr. Chandrasekhar's party. And you even had people like Aslam Sher Khan, Sunil Shastri, Sanjay Singh. Sanjay Singh is now back again in the BJP. So the BJP did attract, but if you count the number of outsiders / lateral entrants who really made it big, there were very, very few. Yashwant Sinha and Ranga were examples. Yashwant Singh himself was an outsider, if you go to see. Now, I'd like to make a distinction between outsiders and outsiders. Jaswant Singh survived, indeed, he prospered on account of his proximity to Vajpayee. He had Vajpayee's 100% patronage. So although he was one of those who wouldn't want to align publicly with the RSS, in fact, he used to tell some of us, I'm not one of those mosque breakers. So as if to say that he didn't really associate with the BJP's extreme Hindutva ideology. Yeah. Indeed, he felt a little squeamish about it. On the other hand, you have Yashwant Sinha and Ranga, who I think their first port of call on joining the BJP was the RSS office in Jandewala. They ingratiated themselves with the RSS's biggies before getting their feet in the BJP. So you talked about the rules of engagement. I think in the rule of engagement in the BJP is very clear, namely that you have to be on the right side of the RSS before you can make it. And there are exceptions, like I said, like Jaswant Singh and Brijesh Mishra. I would imagine that pretty much the same norm would apply to other parties as well, like the Congress.
Definitely the Congress, yeah.
Definitely the Congress. I mean, you had the recent example of Sanjay Jha, who used to run a portal called crick.com, and then he was a pretty successful spokesperson, in my opinion, in the Congress, because he would also have to defend the indefensible. But one dissenting vote, and he was out. So it's the rules, the norms, the dynamics are pretty much same in political circles. Sometimes they're more complex than I would. I wouldn't want to comment on Bollywood because a lot of it has already been said about Bollywood. But as far as politics is concerned, the outsider has a far less chance of success in any political party than someone who has grown from within. I mean, he is at liberty to flout the rules once in a way. He is indulged, he or she, they are indulged. But the outsider has to be on his guard, on alert 24/7.
Okay. Rashid, thank you for joining us. And you can also the outsider in politics. We've seen also a lot of people jump parties, and for instance, we have the case of Scindia, we have the case of Hemanta Biswa, I think, who's done it pretty successfully. This role of being an insider and an outsider. He's always been sure he's the insider in whichever party he is. But how do you see, whether it's Hemanta or Scindia or Rita Bahuguna Joshi? A lot of people have jumped ship from the Congress to the BJP recently. How do you see them faring in this inner world of Modi and the BJP?
I think, Priya, fundamentally, you see, there is always a outsider insider thing. If you read anything on social psychology and all, it will tell you, even in in groups, schools, society, everywhere there are the same set people. Then also there are this thing, followers of this, followers of that leader. It happens in political parties and all, and it depends upon your mental stamina, how you deal with it. The crafty thing that we say it, one of the graduates in University of Life, how they deal with it. You look at Congress, the likes of R.K. Dhawan, M.L. Fatedar, Winston George. They were neither very highly educated nor mass appeal, nothing. But they kind of sold their loyalty to the leader, the highest of leaders of Indira Gandhi's caliber and Rajiv Gandhi and whatnot, and they succeeded. So same thing applies to all those people like you mentioned, whether it's Sarma or Rita Bahuguna Joshi. It's their ability to package themselves, reinvent themselves, and deal with political dynamics. Because remember, political dynamics are more or less same. There are always a top leader or group of two or so. Look at any political party, there are similar kind of dynamics are there. So it's your ability. How do you change yourself? How are you able to, like if you see that from Vajpayee era to Modi era, there are many BJP leaders who have sort of, lost out. And the many who have, are shining much more than what they were in Vajpayee era. So it is, I think it's an individual capital. It's a fascinating subject. But I think it's got to do with, with your mental stamina, your ability, your own assessment of situation, and how do you deal with it.
Kaveri, moving on to politics also, you spoke a lot about Bollywood. But is there a party that is more forgiving? Is BJP Congress equally difficult for the outsider to make his way in?
Priya, I want to make a point here, rather than look at this in particular. I want to look at the modification of society at large. When did this whole insider-outsider narrative really take root? It took root with Mr. Modi's narrative, of being the outsider, which he sold to us, the Kamdar versus Namdar. And it was so ironical because here you have a man who's an insider in the party. He comes from the RSS. I mean, he is so deeply rooted in the BJP. But he sells to us this narrative that he's an outsider in Delhi. So he's an outsider in the power circles of Delhi. And we buy it. And we buy it so well that it then becomes the template for other people in other industries. And, whether it's a Kangana Ranaut or whether it's a Sushant Singh Rajput, you see the politicization of the industry. It begins around the same time as Mr. Modi comes to power in 2014. And you see people like Anupam Kher, like Akshay Kumar, like Kangana Ranaut starting to speak this kind of language. And that, I think, is this modification, as I'd like to call it, and this whole idea that, you have two different, societies in India, so to speak. It's no longer urban and rural divide. It's the outsider and the insider. It's the insider, which is urban, urbane,
Khan Market Gang,
Lutyens Delhi, comes from distinguished families. And it's the poor outsider who's Mufassil, small town, non-English speaking, self-made. And then you have Modi on one side and you have Rahul Gandhi on the other side. So obviously the insider gang looks completely entitled rather than empowered. So who will want to associate with Rahul Gandhi, at the moment? But I mean, politics like Bollywood is such an erratic and erratic game. You never know say, Rahul Gandhi at this age, and you compare Narendra Modi at the same age, Narendra Modi was not known at all, except to a handful of people in Delhi. So politics is a very long-term game, as is Bollywood. You have people like Nawazuddin Siddiqui, becoming famous after 20 years of being invisible, doing tiny parts, doing parts that are completely edited out. Look at the late Irfan Khan. It took him so long to make it. Look at people like Priyanka Chopra. She gets completely ostracized in Bollywood. She goes to another industry, another country, and makes it big there. So there are cycles, as Dilip said, and everyone has to take a long view of it, whether it's in politics or whether it's in industry. But the fact is that everyone wants to make this a narrative about themselves. So if it's Mahesh, but he wants to make it a narrative about mad people and sane people. So he sees Parveen Babi in anyone who is commits suicide
Not
or is
conforming.
mentally unstable. Kangana Ranaut sees nepotism in every situation. Abhinav Kashyap sees Salman Khan's demon everywhere. Everyone makes it about himself. That is Bollywood. Everyone but that's us. No, we only care about ourselves, our success. How the movie does on Friday, and that's it. It really doesn't matter. It's exactly like politics. You have Abhishek Bachchan in the film.
Rahul Gandhi.
Rahul Gandhi in politics. I would say that they're equal, but you never know. You could have a movie which suddenly makes Abhishek Bachchan the next big thing all over again. You could have an election that makes Rahul Gandhi the next big thing all over again. So I think it's all relative.
Picture abhi baki hai as far as Rahul is concerned. Is what you're saying.
As far as anyone is concerned.
Yeah, Radhika?
Yeah, Priya, if I can interject, in politics, just as in Bollywood, commercial success is the bottom line, whether you're an insider or an outsider. In politics, it's all about getting
elections.
votes. Yeah. It's all about getting votes. While Rahul Gandhi has not proved his chops as a catcher so far, I'm not ruling it out in the future. So therefore, increasingly there are generations which are getting impatient with him. Like
Sachin and Scindia, yeah.
And Scindia is, I think we sort of need a separate debate. And the BJP, we will have to see as and when the by-elections are called, the Madhya Pradesh by-elections, whether he's able to deliver votes. And let me tell you, in BJP, that is going to be the bottom line, not the fact that his grandmother was Vijay Raje Scindia, or he has aunts in the BJP. If he is able to deliver even, say, 60-70% of the seats which are in the Chambal region to the BJP, then he has a good thing going in the party. So vote getting is so important in any party. So Akhilesh Yadav, for instance, he started with an enormous advantage, his father's legacy, and which won him the first election and the chief minister's chair. But being a dynasty, completely frittered away the advantage, the goodwill, the legacy. So he's at the crossroads at this moment. And if he doesn't sort of work hard and prove his mettle by the next elections, I see him as probably becoming a footnote in UP's political history.
Ditto for Tejasvi Yadav, I think I would say. And a whole lot of this.
Tejasvi is another, yes, of course, Tejasvi is another. And he's got a formidable opponent in Nitish Kumar. Nitish Kumar is just seems unbeatable at the moment.
Yeah, Rashid, I'll quickly bring you in and then leave the last word for Dilip. The Scindia factor, since we're talking about, that's something that you and I have had many discussions on also. How do you see him faring as an outsider in the BJP? As Radhika said, he'll have to deliver on his work, or he's got a pretty good cross-party connections also. His entry was so smooth, pretty high power. He had all the trappings. A lot of people don't get this kind of a welcome as he got.
I think, Priya, unless Mr. Scindia fails and falters, the roadmap for him is pretty clear. he has got a lot of that family legacy that's there in the BJP. So I don't see him having much of the problem. But the larger debate that we are having, I would say that everything is, politics. The fundamentals are the same. The insider outside, it's like men like Mr. Dilip Cherian who actually excel in building this kind of, I mean, I'm not talking about personally you, but your profession. You see, you have a very carefully curated, narrative. You gave example of Sanjay Jha, Shahzad Punewala. These are all part of. They're also playing games. It is not that that they are very saint or they are they are being punished, but they play game. This is not power politics, and a narrative is built. Where somebody is seen as a, kind of victim and, Rahul. The problem with Rahul and Akhilesh and all, because they are so, so to say, confident. They think they can overcome anything. They don't rely on spin doctors. They are not acting as per a script. If they start acting, you'll see. Take it from me, Priya, you've written also about that Stephanie Cutter who had come and advised Rahul Gandhi on how to do Twitter and all. You need to use modern tools. Much of what Kaveri was saying about Amitabh's struggle, lot of it is a myth. So I'm saying that people are able to, tell their story in a way that they would want people to believe. The truth is somewhere in between. There's a lot of shade of gray, whether it's in film industry or in politics or anywhere. It is success that defines everything. So if you are successful, everything comes on your way. Otherwise, you go on blaming, Khan Market Gang and, Returns Daddy and all kind of things.
But that is also part of the narrative, Dilip. And actually the original outsider was, I think, Arvind Kejriwal. Perhaps he didn't sell that narrative as successfully as Narendra Modi has been able to.
Arvind Kejriwal, all that Anna movement and all, today he's become a biggest, a kind of face of establishment. He's so pro-establishment, be it bureaucracy, be it, central government, any institution that you can think of.
Correct. So Dilip, rounding up, can you give us your takeaways from this and the fact, a bit about the Modi factor, like Kari brought about it.
I think we've all discussed bits and pieces of the Modi factor, but remember that the reason we have all these, whether it's success or whether it's suicide, the reason is that we as a society are getting increasingly polarized. And that polarization is because we are allowing the dominance of identity politics. And identity politics used to be a kind of word reserved for those like the scheduled castes or some, smaller fringe groups who were trying to gain power by identity politics. But now identity politics has got weaponized. It's gone mainstream. And that's the first thing that we need to remember, whether it's Bollywood or whether it's Modi. Modi has defined and refined the concept of identity politics to the extent that it has triggered the levels of polarization to ensure political success. Now, the problem with extreme polarization and extreme identity politics is that what is the human endeavor to flower, blossom, and create new kind of avenues. And whenever you have a highly dominated society dominated by high identity politics, you lose the flavor of all kinds of interesting things that would pop up otherwise. And that, to my mind, is the big danger, whether we are talking business, whether you're talking Bollywood, whether we're talking politics. And what happens very often when you have a kind of extreme stratification like this is that a rank outsider, we kept talking about Rahul Gandhi and for example, Arvind Kejriwal or Nitish. But there are, even today, in the wings, powerful young voices who are waiting. And when the tide begins to turn choppy, you will see the possibility will emerge, unless identity politics snuffs them out, that they will emerge. Whether it's I don't want to name names, but there are 4 or 5 factors who are still out there, who are the great unknowns.
Any of the unknowns within the BJP also, or they're all outside?
No, they can't be within the BJP or within the Congress, because those have already played identity politics of some kind.
Correct. Well, that's it. I think thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. And also we began the debate by just talking about darbars, cliques, cabals, but I think it's gone on to a larger picture as always that happens. So thank you, all of you, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you for watching this show also.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.